Hello and welcome to Confrontation Reborn. Today I wanted to take a look at the Confrontation 3.0 combat phase. I thought it would be helpful for us to look through this again because I saw in a French interview with Rackham Entertainment that they are aiming for a 70-30 split in the new Incarnation game. What I mean by that? Well, 30% of the game mechanics will be carried over from Confrontation as we know today. Not sure if that's from 2.0, 3.0, or 4.0. The remaining 70% or so will be brand new mechanics developed specifically for Incarnation. That got me thinking, if I had to make a decision about if only 30% of the game could be carried over, what would I want to see carried over into the new system? And like you, many of us probably have not played Confrontation in some time. In fact, we haven't played it in maybe 5 years. Maybe if you're based in America, you've never played it. You've only known the game because you have seen the beautiful miniatures online, you've seen people paint them, maybe you bought the book and you read through it, but you actually haven't played a game. So I wanted to go through how a typical combat interaction takes place within Confrontation. Now we're not going to do an exhaustive look of the game, that would take multiple hours. This game is one of the crunchiest games I've ever played. It has about 4 or 5 different, maybe even 10 different mechanics within it. 2 different divination systems or magic systems. It has an awesome shooting phase. It has a really robust rule set for Titans, for War Machines, so on and so forth. Even the different ways that figures interact is fairly complex. So we're not going to go and do a deep dive. Instead, what I want to do is just show you what a basic interaction looks like. So first and foremost, let's take a look at the card itself. Now, Rackham is known for creating symbols that mean absolutely nothing to anyone. Now, they created this so that they didn't have to translate this in multiple languages, but unfortunately, they created symbols that nobody understands. For instance, this top number here represents the movement. Why does that symbol represent movement? I don't know. But let's just quickly go through it all. This 10 on this Griffin Spearman, it represents movement. This 2 represents the initiative. This symbol here represents both the attack and the strength. This symbol here represents the defense and the resilience. This represents leadership, so in this case, the Griffin Spearman does not have any. This next symbol will either be the courageous number or the fearful number. And then finally, we have the unit's discipline, or the character's discipline. Same thing is true for the Wolfen, except here, you'll notice that the symbol is slightly different because he is a fearful character, or fearful figure. So what does that mean? Well, I actually wanted to go right into the combat phase, but I realized that might be doing a disservice to the game itself because there are many different things that have to take place before they even clash. Movement and combat happen in 2 separate phases. During the movement phase, you're able to shoot, cast spells, do your divination, and you're able to move across the map and do what's known as a charge or an engagement. Now, charging matters because when you charge a figure, that's going to affect their stats during the next combat phase. So in this case, let's assume that we've jumped right into the movement phase. Let's assume that the Wolfen figure is up first. And so he's going to declare a charge into this Griffin Spearman. In order to charge, you must be larger or of the same base value of the figure you are engaging with. So in this case, because he's a large figure, he's going to be allowed to charge. If the Griffin wanted to charge, he would have to call Buddy over, and the 2 of them would have to charge at the same time. So in this case, the Wolfen will charge. Now, in Confrontation 3.0, you have to declare your action before you measure. That's really important. So in this case, his movement is 15, and a charge will allow him to double his movement. So he has plenty of room to charge, right? So let's go ahead and charge in. Now, remember when I mentioned the fear characteristic? Well, this game has a very interesting fear mechanic in it that once I declare a charge and I move in towards the Griffin, this Griffin Spearman has to make what's called as a courage test. And we're going to talk about what tests mean in a second. So, how do you make a courage test? Well, you subtract 2 from 6, in this case 4. In order to not be caused to go into rout, he will have to roll a 4 or higher. So in this case, you take a dice, you roll it, and he rolled a 6, so he passed his fear test. Now, since I have the dice out, let's talk about the dice themselves. This is a 6D dice game, and most of the action takes place around the 2, 3, and 4 dice, or the 2, 3, and 4 pips. This is an exploding dice game, so if you roll 6, you're able to roll again and add that dice roll to your initial roll. But if you roll 1, no matter what test you're rolling for, it's an automatic failure. So you have a 1 in 6 chance of failing any of these tests. So in this case, if the Wolfen came in, made a charge, and the Griffin failed his tests, then he would be in a rout. At this point, he would turn around and run away in the opposite direction that the Wolfen charged. So in this case, if the Wolfen was here and he failed, he would run off 20 centimeters in the opposite direction that he was charged in. This is significant because you can avoid a combat altogether, is because if the Wolfen charges him and the Griffin fails his tests and it causes him to run off the board, then he's automatically out of the game. So before any dice are thrown for the combat phase, you can already eliminate a figure. Now let's reverse it. What if the Griffin was charging into the Wolfen? Well, he would still have to make a courage test, but before he charges in, he would have to see if he's able to actually charge, or in this case, engage, because he's smaller than the Wolfen, by passing that same test. So again, he would have to roll 4 or higher. He succeeds, so now he's able to engage as before. If he did not pass that test, then he would have to stay in place and his movement and charge is over. Bit of a bummer, but at least he's not en route. So going back to what we just talked about, so I've successfully charged a Griffin. In order to charge, you have to be able to see the figure before you declare the charge. And now he has a charge penalty, which means that from this point on, for the rest of the conflict of this round, he will have to subtract 1 from most of his rolls. In fact, I have my little cheat sheet here. Hopefully that comes out on the camera. And here you can see that charges subtract 1 from your initiative roll, from your attack roll, defense roll, and aim rolls. And then you also have these penalties as well that we're going to talk about soon. So, okay, we've engaged, we're in a fight. Now, in an actual game, you would probably have more figurines come in and join the fray. And then before you attack, you would have to split the frays. But I'm not going to get into that today because it just gets too complicated. If you're interested in seeing that content, let me know and I can make a new video going into that. But let's say now that they're in combat. So they've charged, they've passed a fear test, and now it's time to fight. So at the beginning of the combat phase, let's say that these two are fighting first. Because, or the way this works is that you always get a dice for yourself, and you get a dice based on how many different figures are engaged with you. So in this case, there's only one figure that this Griffin is fighting with, so he gets 1 extra dice. And let me make sure I get all this on the camera, so give me 1 second. And let's adjust, there we go. In fact, let me point this downward a little bit. There we go. In this case, the Wolfen is a born killer, and that gives him an extra dice. Okay, so these are the dice that we're going to use to attack and to defend. Now, first off, we must make an initiative check. In this case, this Wolfen has a 4 for his initiative, and this Griffin Spearman has a 2. But remember, he's charged, so now technically he really has a 1 for his initiative. So we roll to see who goes first. So let's do that now. Griffin rolls. He rolls a 2, so he has a 3. It's not very good. All the Wolfen has to do is roll anything but a 1, right? Because his initiative is already at 4. So let's see what happens. And he rolls a 2, and that means he has the initiative. Now, one of the things that people can't stand about this game, and one of the things that maybe some people are happy to see go away, is that if the Wolfen was to roll a 1, he would automatically fail his initiative. That means that the Griffin would be the one who has the initiative within the next combat fray. Very frustrating, as you can imagine, because you know that your stats are pretty high, you did the right thing, and yet Lady Luck was not in your favor. But that's part of the game. Now, real quick, Confrontation is an older style game, so there are not a lot of ways to re-roll your dice. If you fail, you failed. Now, some characters and some abilities allow you to re-roll, but that is the exception rather than the norm. But in this case, the Wolfen has the initiative. So that means that the Spearman must place his dice first. He can either choose to place both his dice in attack, or he can place both his dice in defense, He can do one dice in attack and one dice in defense, or whatever he wants to do. In this case, because he knows the Wolfen's going to attack him first, he's going to place at least one dice in defense. Now the Wolfen, he's not so afraid of the strength of the Spearman. The Spearman's strength is only a 3. We're going to see why that matters in a minute. So he's actually going to place all his dice in attack. So now it's time to begin. So now they're ready to fight. Take the first dice. He's going to roll for attack. In this case, make sure you can see that. His attack is 5. The Spearman, his attack is 3. So the Wolfen, all he really has to do is not roll a 1, and that attack's probably going to go through. So let's see what happens. He rolls a 3. So in this case, 5 plus 3 is 8. So now, really the Spearman, remember, he's charged. So automatically his defense is 3. Subtract 1, now he's down to 2. So he really needs to roll a 6. Otherwise he's going to fail. And he rolls a 4. So he is not able to defend the attack. So the attack goes through. I believe that's right, because he rolled a 5. Yeah, so he rolled a 4. That's not bad, but a 4 is only 6. So the attack went through. Now we do a damage roll. And let's talk about damage rolls. So the game has 2 ways, or really one main way to kill your opponent. And that is through wounding him throughout the strength rolls. And we're going to talk about that soon. Actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and roll for that, and we can talk through that. So the attack went through. Now it's time to do a damage roll. So we're going to take the Wolfen's strength. Now, his strength is really high. It's actually a 10. And he's going to pair that up against the Wolfen, or excuse me, against the Griffin Spearman's 8. So let's see what happens. So we're going to roll here. We rolled a 3 and a 5. And let me talk about this real quick. So the lower dice represents where the attack is taking place. A 1 is on the legs, a 2 is in the arms, a 3 is in the belly, 4 is in the chest, and a 5 or 6 is on the head. This is a really good roll. So this is a 3. So that means that this damage roll is going to take place within the belly chart. And he rolled a 5. Oh my goodness. So he has a 15 strength attack against the Griffin's 8. But unfortunately, he's charged. So that means that his attack is or his resilience, in this case, is actually 7. Hey guys, real quick, I was watching a video and I realized I made a pretty big error. During the damage roll, when the Wolfen was rolling against a Griffin, the fact that he's charged would not have mattered here because it is the Wolfen who is attacking the Griffin, not the other way around. Those penalties only apply when you're rolling, not as a general penalty on your card. So he still would have had 8 against the Wolfen's strength. I can't remember what it was. Might have affected where the wound ended up on the chart, but in the end, I don't think it would have mattered. But just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. So that means that the final attack is 15 minus 7, so that's going to be 8. Hopefully my math is correct. I'm doing this on the camera. So yes, so 8. So we have 3. So we look at this chart. It's in the belly area. We go over to the left column. It's in the 8 or 9 column. Scroll over and that is a critical wound. So what does that mean? Well, he's in trouble. Now he has a critical wound. Now this is an aftermarket. I don't think that's coming out to the camera. This is an aftermarket token. Typically the real tokens would just have this little symbol. Again, you wouldn't know what this is, but and this aftermarket token actually says critical wound. So now he's charged and he's critically injured. What is critically wound? What do critical wounds mean? Well, that means that now he has to subtract -3 from his initiative rolls, attack rolls, defense rolls, aim rolls, and his damage rolls. Oh my gosh. Plus he's charged. So he is not in good shape, and the Wolfen is very happy. But it is his turn. So let's see what happens. He's now going to roll an attack. The Wolfen actually cannot block this attack, because remember, I didn't put anything down on my defense, so this attack's going to go through. So all I need to do is not roll a 1. Let's see. And I rolled a 4. That means 4 plus 6 minus 4 here, because 1 plus 3, 2. The attack goes through. Now he's going to do a damage roll to the Wolfen. But unfortunately, this Spearman is in really bad shape. So he has a strength of 3. So if you subtract his penalties, he's already at -1. So he needs to roll fairly high in order to actually make a dent. Now the Wolfen doesn't have the best resilience. He only has a 6, but let's see what happens. So we're going to do a damage roll. Ooh, I saw a 6 and I thought it might be a double 6, but we'll see. So 6, so strength is at -1. -1 plus 6 is 5. So we're at 1, 5 minus, or so 5 minus the Wolfen's resilience, so 6. So basically, nothing happened. Let me do that again because I think I talked a little. It made sense in my head, but now that I'm putting this video together, it may not. So remember, his strength is 3. So we're going to add 6 to 3. So that's 9 minus his penalties. So charge, critical. So we said 9. So he's down to what? 5. So 5 is the strength of his attack. Unfortunately, that 5 has to be subtracted against the 6, which is effectively 0. Let's take a look at the wound chart. That means he did no damage. Oof. Uh-oh. Now it's the Wolfen's turn. At this point, it's going to take a miracle for the Wolfen to not kill the Griffin, but it is possible because if he fails his attacks, he can never even do a strength wound. So let's see what happens. Here comes his next attack. The Griffin does not have any more defense dice, so he can't block it. Attack goes through. Now he can roll his strength test, or his damage roll, I should say. Yep, that fell off. Let's try that again. We know it's at the arms area, and it's a 6. I'm pretty sure that's going to go through because once you add in his strength of 10, plus 16 minus 8, yeah, he's dead. What do I mean by that? So let's take a look at this. So this is hitting in the arms area, and we know it's going to inflict another wound. So once you have 4 wounds, the figure is killed outright. So let's back up a little bit because that happened a little bit faster than I wanted it to. Let's say that in the first interaction, the Wolfen did not inflict a critical wound, but instead inflict a light wound. Okay. The next attack comes through. He inflicts another light wound. Well, now the Griffin's at a serious wound level. Next attack comes. He inflicts a critical wound, or excuse me, another light wound. Now his serious wound goes to critical. And then once he has 4 hits, he's doomed. So it's interesting though. You could also do it like this. Let's say that he was hit the first time and he received a light wound, and then he was hit the second time and he was hit at a serious level. It doesn't matter. He still goes up to a serious wound. So they don't stack on top of each other. They just replace the previous one. They do stack if you get a bunch of light wounds, or even I should take that back. They can stack because let's say you get a serious wound and you get another serious wound. Well, now you're at critical, right? And you're working your way up the wound chart, and that's it. The Griffin is dead. He's off the map, and now the Wolfen is free to move wherever he wants. He can do a pursuit movement, which is basically his movement space of 15, and at this point he can go and engage another figurine. Okay, Future Samuel again. Sorry about that. The pursuit movement is actually half of his movement, so he wouldn't move 15. He would move 7.5. Sorry about that. So that's basically the confrontation interaction in the most basic way. Now, I will say that there are elements of the system that I think are fantastic. And I apologize if I messed up anything during that introduction. Please let me know in the comments if I missed something, but I think I was fairly thorough. But I do like the fact that it is that there's 2 different ways to attack. So you have your, or not attack, but there's 2 tests that you have to pass in order to wound the figure. Now, unfortunately, one of the issues I've always had with confrontation is that it is possible that you can get into a bit of a stalemate. So let's swap out this character and let's bring in another figurine. In this case, what if we were to fight someone like the Templar of the Inquisition? Well, let's look at his stats. His stats are 4 or 5, but look at this resilience, right? So if you look at this Fang, and this has happened to me in multiple games, you can get into a situation where you are wounding each other, you get to critical wounds, and then you just become so weak that you just can't wipe each other off the map, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, remember, every time I'm hurt, whenever I roll a damage roll, I have to subtract that penalty from my damage roll. So for instance, let's say if I'm critically wounded, my damage roll is now -3. Well, if my opponent has a resilience of 11 and I only have a strength of 10, man, I'm already punching below my weight. I'm gonna have to roll pretty high. And so one of the challenges one of the issues I've had with Confrontation is that around the middle rounds, figures can just be stuck in engagement with neither figure really making a dent on the other. That doesn't happen often. That's happened to me a few times, but that's part of the game. Oftentimes, though, when you choose your combats wisely, you can kind of wipe out. If you correctly attack the right figure, you can probably attack them and knock them off the map. But still, it's a very robust system. It feels very weighty. And as you bring in new figurines, you'll learn quickly like which combat interactions you should focus on and which ones you should avoid. So for instance, I'm going to show a couple of different types of troops. So typically the game will have these familiars. These are very light type troops. Light meaning that they don't have very effective stats. They do other great things. So for instance, let's take a look at their stats. We have the Silva Anime, 2-3, 3-4. This guy's not going to be long for the field. And the Angel of Light is at 3-5 and 2-4. Again, they do other things, but combat is not them. So having the Wolfen charge one of them, they would never charge the Silva Anime unless they're fighting another Wolfen pack. But let's say they attacked another... let's say that you wanted to wipe out the unique characters on the field. Well, you would aim for these weaker characters, and you can do that pretty effectively. Next tier is the one we were just looking at, right? So we have the Griffin Spearmen. We just looked at their stats, kind of like your basic regular troop. They're the ones that you're okay if they die, although every time you lose a Wolfen, that's never a comfortable thing. Same thing is true for, like, let's say the Wolfen Hunter. I have him over here too. In fact, I meant to say that he's kind of like your general troop for the Wolfen. So that's him. He's basically probably more on par with this type of character from the Griffin. And then these two would be more on par. Kind of like your next level up, a bit more of a tanky type of figure. And then at the very top, you have your elites. These are the guys who you hope that they get into the right fray. They're the ones who are going to be collecting different objectives, making things happen. They have some of the most aggressive and difficult stats to overcome in the game. For instance, you have the Praetorian Guardsman. He's at 5'8", 5'11". They may not seem too impressive until you realize that he has a lot of really impressive abilities like Master Strike. That's a whole other ability. It's pretty powerful. And then you have the Predator of Blood. Look at that, 6'12", 5'8". And I believe he has Hard-Boiled, Born Killer. Plus he can do other things too. So yeah, that's basically the system in a nutshell. And I could probably spend another 40 minutes going through it, but I'm going to stop here. One little bonus thing I wanted to talk about in the last video, I mentioned that I had created some templates for my cavalry bases, and I finally found it. It actually was above me the whole time in a storage container, so that's what I was referring to. So a bit of lore for those of you who watched the last video. And finally, I just want to say thank you for everyone who's been supporting me, sending me some positive vibes on Discord, as well as on the various social media channels. That really means a lot. I have no real long-term plans for this channel. I'm just going to keep on posting as long as I have something to say and keep on interacting with you fine folks as much as I can. So that's it. Let me know in the comments what you think. If there's something else you want me to evaluate, if you felt this was helpful, maybe there's some other systems you would like me to demonstrate to you. And as I mentioned, really the point of all this is to remind you how Confrontation was played. That way you can share with the developers the different aspects of the game that you want to see carried over, and maybe some of the stuff that you weren't a big fan of. Oh, I forgot one thing. Some of you might have already clicked off by now, and you're probably already commenting that I forgot about this. I forgot to mention, what if you roll a 6-6 in your damage rolls? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot this. 6-6 means killed outright, no matter what. That means your little simple figurines could go around the map just wiping everyone out. And let me tell you, if you do that in the real game, let's say you have this figure that's 18 or 20 points, I can't remember, and he kills one of your characters that are, let's say, 100 points or more by the killed outright. you will have a very salty opponent. It's happened to me, and I've done that to other people. So very interesting mechanic. I probably could have talked about that for another 20 minutes, but I'll stop here. That is something that's always a possibility. In fact, I will say too that ability matters when your characters are very wounded, because at that point you're just hoping for that 6/6 roll, because that's about the only way that they can do any more damage, because they're just too weak. Anyway, for those of you who stuck around to the very end, thank you and take care. See you all soon.